Hello and welcome to the podcast that is very particular about the number of shirt that it puts on. Number 17, no way. 21, get out of here. 88, nonsense. The only good number is a good old-fashioned number 9 shirt. Welcome to the big man up top.
Ed, are you okay?
No, I'm not.
That's quite the rant.
You've got to, you can't wear these silly numbers, you know.
Yeah. No, I've just seen your script here. There's a lot of capital letters going on.
Trent Alexander-Arnold, 66.
Oh, come on.
Come off it. He needs to wear a number 2. You know, proper shirt number for a proper position.
Oh, but so many of these players get given bigger numbers when they're coming through, and it's just superstitious, isn't it?
I know. I don't like any of that. We've had another email, Joe.
Another one?
I know, and
wow.
it really hammers home that they trickle in rather than flood in when we're excited about one email.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're just very grateful for every email that comes in. We've had a fantastic email from Tom, the Chelsea fan, who just sent us some lovely, encouraging correspondence. He was just very keen to just say that he loved the series, thought it was great. And said if you ever want a fan of a real club on too, we can get him on as a guest.
Okay.
He's a Chelsea fan.
I thought he said a real club.
His exact words were none of this Liverpool nonsense.
Oh, interesting. I've actually been quite nice about Chelsea, I feel.
But it's great to hear from Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for getting in touch.
And please send in your emails to podcasts@ucb.co.uk.
Now, Ed, it's the time of the podcast where you dread it, don't you? I see the fear come across your face every time we get to this point in the podcast where I test your footballing brain.
I know, I really don't like it.
I'm winning 5-2.
You're winning 5-2. It's getting to drubbing territory.
It is. It's getting towards there, isn't it? This is a part of the podcast where we guess the player with a difference. The answer to that question will be a footballer who shares their first name with a book of the Bible.
Gotcha. So you need good knowledge of the Premier League. But
you need
also
good knowledge about... It could be the Premier League, it could not be the Premier League.
Good football knowledge and good Bible knowledge.
Yeah, the big two. Which one are you better at?
I'm very average.
I'd suggest the Bible at this point.
I'm very average on both, if I'm honest.
Okay, are you ready for your question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Which English midfielder registered the most assists in a single Champions League season, having signed for his club on a free transfer?
Okay, English midfielder... signed for a club on a free transfer. My first thought is this isn't Jude Bellingham. He didn't sign for Borussia Dortmund on a free.
Did he not?
Did he?
Who's to say?
Oh, did he? Oh gosh, now you're freaking me out now.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it?
Could it be Jude Bellingham? Yeah, there's lots of potentials there. Yeah, you're gonna have to come back to me.
Well, I'll come back to you later, Ed, and we'll see how you get on with that question.
Yeah,
I'm not feeling confident for you.
No, I'm not. Which makes me think it's not Jude Bellingham, if you don't think I'm confident. Joe, I feel like it was the greatest weekend of football this week.
It could be. That's quite a claim. I think... certainly on this podcast, we would say so. Well,
this is it. I feel like it's not just your team that affects how your weekend is. We've all talked about, when your team wins, you have a great weekend, and when they don't, it puts a bit of a downer on it.
A cloud.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, so many other teams' results come into play as well. Yeah. So for me, Stoke won. Great, happy time. Very happy with time.
Deserved win as well, apparently.
Deserved win, yes, very much so. Equally to that, Port Vale, riding high at the moment, lost at home.
Yeah.
So,
That'll make you happy, won't it?
That makes me happy. Arsenal lost.
Yes, they did, very much so.
So, we'll come on to them in a bit. Liverpool won, so you're delighted.
I'm very happy.
Man City lost.
Yes.
What about Everton? What did they do?
Everton lost as well.
Exactly.
Southampton.
It feels like the greatest weekend
I think
of
nothing
football.
went wrong, Ed.
No, exactly. And I would like to know from our listeners, what is your ideal weekend of football? What sort of 4 or 5 results need to go your way for it to be the best weekend of football? Because I've got to be honest, it's kind of up there for me. Did you see the goal from the Peterborough United game the other day, Joe?
No, I did not.
Well, we were talking about ghost goals a few weeks ago. And obviously the classic one, I think, is Reading against Watford. from quite a few years back, where a goal was awarded to Reading despite the ball not going in the net. It was a sort of a goal-mouth scramble, and the ball goes over the line, but outside of the goal.
Not traditionally a goal.
No, exactly. This was the exact opposite. Yeah. So Peterborough had a corner. It was an in-swinging corner. It was swung into the near post, and there was sort of a bundled header, and the ball went in the net. Yeah. Actually went in.
Okay.
But it entered the goal very, very low down, right by the post. And after some confusion, the Peterborough players went and celebrated, the referee awarded a corner kick.
Oh.
And no goal was awarded. And I think from what I've gathered, there was some thought that maybe it had gone in via a hole in the side of the net. But you can quite clearly see from a couple of angles that the ball goes in. And,
aren't they meant to check for holes in the net?
Yeah, that's what they do with the little sort of
do a bit of that,
little bit of that. We're sort of just waving arms around here. They go to check the nets before each half. Yeah, but
you'd be fuming.
You would. You'd be quite annoyed. And what's so funny about the whole thing is the Peterborough players' reaction is very much it's not. They're not incandescent with rage. They're very confused.
Yeah, well, you would be, yeah.
But the ball was in the net, ref. It's in the net.
No VAR in the Peterborough game.
No, not at all. But I did quite enjoy that.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you remember, a few seasons ago, Stefan Kiesling, big man up top for Bayer Leverkusen.
Very much so.
He scored a header, but actually the goal did go through the side netting. It was a really weird kind of moment where I'm sure if he tried it again, he could never do it. He kind of headed it wide, but through a gap in the side netting, and it went in. And they gave the goal.
Oh, so fantastic! Yeah, more ghost goals, please.
Yeah, they are entertaining.
It feels very much like we're a week late for Halloween, but let's.
Very good. I'd just love to hear the VAR discussions for that.
Yeah,
did it go in?
Did it go in?
I don't know.
Sure. In other football news, it was the second round of the FA Cup.
It was a few shocks.
Yeah, there was. Do you want to talk us through one or two?
Well, yeah, I watched the Tamworth against Huddersfield game on Friday night.
You are such a fan of football, aren't you, Joe?
Well, it was just on the BBC, Ed.
Yeah.
I was going to put it on. Tamworth won this as a result of something very dear to your heart, Ed.
Always.
The long throw.
The beloved long throw.
Take me back to 2008.
Just what a wonderful time in football history when the ball going out for a throw-in 40 yards from goal was a set-piece opportunity.
It was. I keep seeing that clip come off of Boaz Myhill. Yeah. Remember when he kicked it out for a corner against Stoke?
It was great.
What a moment.
It was a wonderful time. And my favourite thing about that time was seeing goalkeepers really struggling to deal with it. And that was the thing with this goal in the Tamworth game. It was a long throw from Tommy Tonks.
What a name.
Great name, by the way. It sounds like some kind of plastic digger that you'd give to a child.
Yeah, or like a 90s plasticine cartoon model.
Yeah, good.
It?
Yeah, Tommy
Tonks.
Very good. Well, his talent is a long throw, which is not new, but goodness me, he's got one heck of a chuck on him, hasn't he?
He absolutely tonks it into the box.
Tonks it in, and that's the thing is like Rory Delap's throws were always very low and flat,
weren't they? Yeah.
But they were always stung into the near post or the middle of the 6-yard box. These throws are going right to the back stick. It's incredible how much distance he's getting on them. But what I loved about it was just the sheer panic, and you could just see the goalkeeper just flapping, and obviously that's what happened in the goal is he essentially tried to punch it away and punched it in his own net. But yes, it was good stuff. Elsewhere in the FA Cup, MK Dons lost to AFC Wimbledon.
A win for the people, Ed.
A win for the people.
A win for football.
That was the first win for Wimbledon at MK Dons in 7 years, I think, of them trying to do it. I do hate when commentators say, and look at what it means to them. It's like, yeah, sure. But I think in this case, when you've looked into what the Wimbledon fans had to do to resurrect their club, and the whole return to plough lane and all that sort of stuff, you can really understand why it would mean so much to them.
So, Ed, you said before, the perfect weekend of football.
Perfect, absolutely perfect.
And it started off at St James's Park at 12:30 on Saturday.
It did. Newcastle beating Arsenal 1-0.
Very similar to the game last season, which happened at a similar time in the season, 1-0 to Newcastle.
Yeah. What did you make of Newcastle's performance?
It was a classic Newcastle performance, I think, under Eddie Howe. Very intense, high pressing, defended very well, very good out of possession. These two teams are known for their game management, aren't they? Like, they are very good defensively, very good out of possession. So this was never going to be a high scorer, I think.
No, but I think Newcastle deserved it, and this is the time of year where Arsenal begin to show signs of bottling things and true to form. Here they are. I don't know if you saw that clip of Alan Shearer watching the game live with Ian Wright, and obviously
big rivalry there.
But the celebration from Alan Shearer was fantastic. It was guttural, it was heartfelt, and he exclaimed, "That was a cross from the 90s."
The best kind of cross.
Referring to Gordon's cross for Isak's header. Speaking of being absolutely joyous that a team lost, Man City lost away at Bournemouth.
Yeah, I didn't see this coming.
No, not at all. But I think that, Bournemouth looked really, really lively. Could have been more than the 2-1. And again, I'm joking really, but Man City are that team at the moment where everyone is just sort of quietly hoping they lose, just to make it interesting.
We do want it to be interesting. And I don't want to speak too soon, but it feels like this season could be a close one. And I know that as a Liverpool fan, I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but it does feel...
That's for the best.
But it feels like Arsenal and City are still looking at each other as the rivals. Like, Liverpool are top, but it feels a bit like they're not in serious contention.
Yeah.
Whereas these two are still... They're established teams and they're still kind of at each other.
You're sort of thinking, let's let City and Arsenal, fight it out amongst themselves, and we'll quietly go and pick up the trophy.
No, I'm not saying that, Ed.
No, but I think you're right. I think that City have obviously struggled with injuries, although I think that's maybe been slightly overblown as well. They have an incredible squad. They should be able to.
Yeah, both these teams have a good squad, but also quite a small squad.
Yeah, I think both City and Arsenal, I think there's no reason to hit the panic button just yet. They're both still very good teams. They'll regroup and they know how to handle these setbacks, don't they?
Speaking of really good teams,
okay,
Liverpool beat Brighton 2-1.
Oh, I couldn't see that one coming.
Liverpool are actually quite poor in the first half, I thought, quite flat. Brighton playing well, managed to carve through Liverpool's midfield quite easily, which was a bit of a throwback to the Klopp days where he just didn't care about the midfield or defending, really. He would just go for it. But Slot has this ability to read games really well. Yeah. He really shored up the midfield, and that second half was probably the best Liverpool have played this season, I think. Another
team looking really good and actually breathing down Liverpool's necks is Forest.
Yes, looking very good, actually.
Creeping up into third, beating West Ham at home.
Yeah, they're looking really good. Chris Wood scoring. They've brought in Milenkovic, who is a very tall Serbian centre-back, which sounds like what you need to shore up your defence. Yeah. Doesn't it? It's difficult to know where they'll end up, but I think top half is a realistic target for them this season.
And it's just the transformation. It feels very similar to Leicester. I'm not saying they're going to go and win the league, but
they have the same number of points this season that Leicester did at that stage of the season.
Well, that's interesting. I think if you look at where they were a year ago when Nuno came in, and very similar to Leicester is that they were at the wrong end of the table, messing about with a relegation scrap and all that sort of stuff. Before this game, I couldn't have told you where Forest were in the league.
No.
If you'd have asked me, I'd have said, well, I know they're having a good season. They're probably 9th.
Yeah, mid-table. Solid mid-table.
And all of a sudden the table comes up after the weekend and they're in third. So
there you are. Ed's called it. Forest to win the league.
I've not called it at all. Speaking of teams that definitely won't win the league, Tottenham beat Villa 4-1.
Yeah, again, game of two halves, really. Spurs were quite poor in the first half. You wonder if they were a bit tired from their win against City in the week. But yeah, really turned it on in the second half.
There was a really great statistic on Match of the Day that Spurs have picked up 24 points from losing positions this year. And I think Manchester City was second by some distance, maybe with 14 points or something. And that just shows that Ange he's clearly got into a good rhythm of being able to correct issues on the fly. He's able to spot problems mid-game, change them.
Yeah.
Either that, or he's just very good at rousing his players in the half-time break. Probably a mixture of the two.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
And he's also courageous enough to make the decisions he needs to make. So he took Son off just after the cross for the goal, And he wasn't happy, and you could sort of tell the murmuring from the fans. They probably weren't happy as well.
Yeah.
What's he doing here? But it was the right call, and, fair play.
Yeah, look, it's one of those decisions that if you win, then it looks genius. If they didn't go on and win, then it looks questionable.
We've talked a lot about Villa, who've played really good football this year and the last couple of years, obviously. I think people would look at that result and be a bit like, ooh, a bit of shock. But what I would say is that Villa were very much in the game until quite late on.
Yeah, the result doesn't show this whole story, does it?
I think, again, if they dust themselves off, they'll be fine next week. The big game on Sunday was Man United 1, Chelsea 1, Joe. The only two notes I wrote from this game were great goal from Caicedo.
Very good goal.
I love Van Nistelrooy's polo shirt.
The first 9 games of this Premier League season, he's been an assistant manager. He's been behind, eerily stood behind Ten Hag, ready to take the reins whenever, in his full blue United tracksuit.
Yeah.
As soon as Ten Hag's on, he's coming out in a lovely blazer.
It's one of those weird things where, do you think they have to sort of plan it? Like, they're just like, he's speaking to his wife and saying, look, there's a real chance I might get this job. What's my look going to be? But yes, I think it'll be interesting to see, obviously United's an evolving story with the new manager coming in. So watch this space, I think. Okay, Joe, I wanted to bring you this week something that was very important to me.
Okay.
So
has the rest of it not been that important?
Well, this is just general football nonsense chat. This is something that I think is a bit more important. Now, as you'll know, I am a dad.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Thank you. I have 2 young girls, and my eldest is 7, and she is really getting into football. She loves plays multiple times a week. And I think because of that, I've been thrown into the world of girls' grassroots football. And I've seen lots of really great stuff, lots of really exciting stuff, but also lots of issues in that area as well. And so I think there's a much larger conversation that we can have about the women's game in general, and we want to do that on this podcast. It's not just all about the blokes. But I think specifically I wanted to bring a focus this week on the grassroots game. I thought it'd be amazing to speak to somebody who knows what they're talking about. And this week I've got an interview to play for you that I did with Carly Telford, former Chelsea goalkeeper and lioness, and just a real advocate for the women's grassroots game. She really knows her onions on this topic.
Great.
And so, we had a chat about women's grassroots football.
Carly Telford, former lioness and just all-round goalkeeping legend. Carly, how are you doing?
Even better now I've had that introduction. So yeah, thanks, Ed.
Amazing. Well, we wanted to talk about girls' football, women's football, particularly grassroots football today. I'd like to start, if we can, by going back to the start of your career. Paint a picture of what it was like for you as an aspiring young footballer in the Northeast when you were younger.
I think I was really lucky. Look, I started playing when I was 6 or 7 years old, and I went to primary school like most of us did at that age. But I kind of joined in with the boys in the playground, and I was very lucky that, don't get me wrong, it probably took them a while to pass me the ball and get used to a girl being on the kind of playground with them. But once they knew they had an extra person that would join in at break time and lunchtime, I was kind of right in there, and they'd knock on the door afterwards. We'd go around in gangs to find fields and space to play a bit of five-a-side together, or co-op, or whatever game we could play, or find 2 trees. I was just very blessed to have a very supportive group of guy friends. And then I was just down a local field with my brother, and there was a guy who's coaching some girls, and he come over when we were kicking the ball around, just said, do you play for a team? And I'd only played with the boys for school, but he actually was a coach for Chastity Street Ladies. And that's actually where I ended up going in goal. So I played outfield as a promising winger as a youngster, and then ended up in goal at 12 years old, and winning kind of all the accolades at under 13 level. So I found that I was actually a pretty good goalie, and then was picked up by Sunderland, and the journey kind of went from there. But the grassroots level was very basic. It was Tuesday, Thursday night, 8 till 9 o'clock at night, play on a Sunday. At that age, you're playing in kind of multi-tournaments throughout the day. So you play 4 or 5 games a day in random places against lots of different teams. And then you go and move to Sunderland where you're just training, and then you'd have maybe one academy game or meet up. But we'd do those on similar nights. So I'd go and train at Sunderland before, and then I'd go and train at my local clubs. It was a lot when I look back at my parents and my dad, especially because he was the driver. So unlucky for you, Ed, you've got a lot of that coming your way. My whole kind of week would encompass in going to school and then going to play as much football as possible, which again, you just turn up and tell your mum and dad that you want to go. You don't really think about their lives at the time. They don't have one anymore.
I can definitely resonate with a lot of that. You know, since my daughter, who's 7, started getting into football, she just tells me when she wants to play, and I go, right, well, I best get in the car then. You know, I'm interested actually, just off the back of something you said. You mentioned about the boys passing to you. That's actually something that we found with my daughter. She was playing in a mixed team, and it was funny. She got to an age, and basically all of the boys stopped passing to her, and it was really odd. And that was the moment where we were like, okay, I think we need to move her to an all-girls team. And that's when we saw the issues in girls' grassroots football. So it's nice that you had some boys that would pass to you, maybe.
Yeah, no, it was, like I say, I was very lucky, but it took a while for them. And like I say, I think it's more like at that age, right? You're all trying to figure out who your friends are, whatever. Naturally, the boys will be friends with each other. So what they do is they just pass to their friends. I think even if a boy had come in who they didn't know, they'd probably still be very cautious into passing to them because they're not in their friendship group or they're not sure. But I think for girls, it's even more different. And then sometimes it can go one or two ways, right? If all of a sudden the girl's really good, it's like, oh, we don't want to be embarrassed by the girl beating everyone, so we're also not going to pass to her. So that's why it's so important you have these spaces, right? Everything's going so well in women's football at the elite level, but we look at grassroots and Shure's research has shown that there's still not enough accessibility, enough spaces, enough safe spaces for young girls to be able to go and play and thrive in. And we've got to look at that and address that from an elite level, but also from grassroots level, and making sure they're not put off and have these boundaries where they can just go to mixed football or boys teams where a lot of the girls will fall away because they don't get passed to or they don't feel comfortable, or it's just not a nice place for them to be themselves in. So yeah, I think it's hugely important that this research is done. And as much as it doesn't look good right now, I think it's an opportunity for us to change perception and give young girls some opportunities.
Well, let's touch on that research. It is undeniable the women's game is in a much better place than it was 10, 20 years ago. We have come quite far, but there is clearly still a long way to go. What do you think are the real sort of key headlines or maybe alarm bells from this research?
Referees is a big one. 43% of the referees aren't available, and so therefore either someone's parent has to step in or the games can't go ahead. So you train all week and you're ready for your match at the weekend, but if there's no availability, then the games don't go ahead. And as much as you learn a lot in training, you learn a lot more from playing the games. It's astounding that 78% of girls and women in their local areas find that they haven't got the same access as a men's and boys team does, because there's not enough pitches available and there's not enough access to grass in the summer. But then in the winter time, it's going to move to those all-weather pitches and those indoor areas. Are there enough of those around to support both boys and girls in their clubs? And then who's in charge of those? Are they having the right conversations to make sure that it's equally shared across the evenings, across the weekends? Or is it kind of just like the boys and the men come first and then the women just have to take up the rest of the time, which is usually and not ideal for parents 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, which just isn't feasible.
Do you think there's something in terms of a mindset, a cultural shift in that, girls football not being second best to boys football?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it came from the Euros, right? The girls finally win a major trophy since 1966. And all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, the women are better than the men. And that's not the right way to put about it. But as if it's seen like that for us in order to get more access and more kind of availability for things, then absolutely we should be using that. Look, we should be championing both our girls and boys exactly the same. We want to win trophies on both levels, but that means that we have to have access at equal levels as well. Like, I just think, like, imagine for 50 years, girls and women were banned from playing football, where female football would be right now. It would be miles better than what it is now. And it's already a very good product, but a lot of people don't know the history of the game. And I think that, there's still lots for us to do. And I think that accessibility and having role models now that young girls can look up to. I think it's just nice now that girls have those role models, but also have the ability to be able to see it all the time. Young boys will sit and watch football. If they love football, they don't know the difference of, apart from seeing it. If they're at Stamford Bridge, they've just put it on. They see Chelsea v Arsenal, they're just going to sit and watch it. And it's a great product to watch. And that's how I think you educate. You just don't want parents thinking, oh, it's just the women's game, I'll turn it off, it's not Premier League. Actually allow them to watch it, enjoy it, and let them make their own decisions. Sometimes they'll sit there and enjoy it just as much. Take them to the games, let them experience it live. Like, that's how you change cultural perception of what it is. And it's amazing for me when I see so many young boys at the women's games just totally enjoying it. And then they've maybe even got like one of the names on the back of their shirts, and then they leave and they have favorite players and they want to go watch them, and then they want to play them in the game, FIFA, when they get home. Like, that's the kind of societal changes that will help also our young boys become better all-rounded young men as well.
I'd like to ask you, what more do you think the FA, clubs, local councils can do to encourage more girls to take part from an earlier age?
I think it's about, one, the game's grown exponentially at elite level, and it's so great we have so many role models and whatever, but it's now about creating really good pathways for parents and young girls. I think we've got to give opportunity at grassroots level, create safe spaces. Again, girls are at that age, probably between the ages of 9 and 15, where it's quite a vulnerable space for a female. You've gone through a lot of changes in your body. You've got education around you. You've got all those kind of decisions that you're making. You're just growing into who you are and where you want to be. And I think that that's not always easy to do in a group of men that are also going through that, or a group of young boys. So having spaces where girls can either choose to be involved if they feel comfortable enough to be involved in mixed football, but also opportunities where if they're not comfortable to thrive in that area, that they can go and just thrive in kind of women's and girls only spaces. Because I think that's how you produce talented footballers. You have to give them the choice. My generation, we didn't have much of a choice, but we found the spaces to be able to do it. But I think now with the growth of the game, we have to find those opportunities. And it is about local communities. It's about, unfortunately, probably dads and parents getting amongst those communities and kind of saying, like, how do we find better ways of creating leagues and spaces and timings, like what works best for parents, for the girls and the boys? Do we share a pitch and just have half a pitch each so that we can both thrive in those areas? Is it, I don't know, one week we have a good time, the next week you guys do it a bit later? And it's having those conversations. I think that's the opportunity, because realistically now, I think we don't probably have, especially in densely populated areas, space to build new pitches, new artificial weather kind of turfs. So then how do we share? How do we make sure that that's equaled out and we're able to create opportunity? Because I think there are an abundance of young girls wanting to play the sport. They just probably don't know how and where they start.
For a listener who may be thinking, oh yeah, this all sounds great, how can I get involved? How can I help? What would you suggest to somebody in that situation? How can they make a difference in their own communities?
Someone asked me this on a panel like a few months ago. It was a dad who had 2 boys, and he was like, how do I? And I just said, go to a game. Look, it's all about investment. It's all about eyeballs. It's all about seeing it and being involved in it. It could just be you go to a WSL game if you've got access to that, which is great, and go into a main stadium and watch the amazing athletes play, but also like go to your local communities, like go and watch the sport and locally as well as in the bigger stage. But also for me, I think investment has to come from the FA. I think as people like myself and ex-Lionesses and the Lionesses right now, we have the ability to make change. And I know the Lionesses did that in schools when they won the Euros, and by making sure girls football was put into their curriculum and they have that option, and it's every girl will get the opportunity to play football at school, but then also opening their own pitches in their local areas, which are dedicated to girls being at the forefront, and keep talking about it. That's all we can do. And from talk, we can create action, and action will create change. And that's the biggest thing, I think, for us.
Carly, thank you so much for joining us on The Big Man Up Top today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
What I really love about this conversation, Ed, is that it's something that we can all get involved in. This isn't just on the professional game, is it? This is purely about what we can do to get involved in this issue.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's much more of it's, less about the team you support or whatever it may be. And this is a real thing of just community, and just like church can be the centre of a community, increasingly these days, football clubs are the centre of our communities as well. Yeah. And how they're run is really, really important, I think.
We talk about equal opportunity at grassroots level. You spoke about how your eldest daughter is getting into football. What's your personal experience been of the way a grassroots girls club is run?
What I would say is that there isn't really one universal experience. I have been with my daughter to 4 or 5 different setups. Some have been amazing, some have been terrible, and the others have been somewhere in between. And I think that there's a lot of money being invested into girls' grassroots football, which is obviously a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think that one issue that we're currently going through is that the team that she plays for at the moment, that is local to us, are really struggling to actually find pitch space for the girls.
Okay.
And what's quite frustrating is that it seems to be sort of lower down in the list of priorities to sort out a pitch for the young girls who are playing than it is, for example, the boys that are the same age. They managed to get a pitch, and that's sort of what we touched on with Carly, is that investment's great. There has been a lot of investment. That's something you can do quite quickly, and you see quite quick results. But actually, there's more of a mindset shift that's required, more of a culture shift that's required to say, like, well, actually, girls are increasingly interested in football. Obviously, not as interested as the boys yet, but it's growing so rapidly.
Absolutely.
That they will be soon. And so surely we need to be providing equal opportunities for boys and girls at this level to just go and play football and have fun.
Definitely. I think a real significant moment, which you touched on with Carly, was the Euros win. I think, we were growing up watching football. We had our heroes, didn't we? We'd go into the garden, we'd try and recreate the goals that we saw on the TV. And this really drove me forward in wanting to play more, wanting to get into football more. We're now seeing that a bit more in the women's game, aren't we? These players are getting more of a platform, more of a reputation, and are becoming household names that girls like your daughters are looking up to. I think that was a real significant moment for girls football.
I do remember years ago watching the Women's FA Cup when the standard was much lower.
Yeah.
I remember being very disappointed because I remember thinking, it should be better than this. And fast forward 20 years, it is so much better, and that's because of the investment, and that's really great. My daughter, she's obsessed with Georgia Stanway. She's her player. My daughter also plays in midfield, and part of it was that Georgia has the same name as her cousin. So she was just like, I like that player, and I was like, oh, okay, well, there's worse players for you to pick as a sort of somebody to look up to. But because the women's games were on telly, she just was able to see it more, see the buzz around it, and just realise that it's something that she can do and that some really amazing women are doing. And I think that's definitely been the first part of it, is that investment followed by that exposure, which has really helped. And what this survey that was commissioned by Shaw has highlighted is that now the issues are much more at a logistical level.
Okay.
One of the things is that 43% of female footballers struggle to get a ref for matches. Now, if any of you have ever played men's Sunday league or Saturday league, getting a ref is very difficult, and there's issues there as well. The issues are very much the same. They're just more stark in the women's grassroots game. It's finding pitches. The cost seems to be higher and higher. The opportunities are not quite there yet. And I think, look, we don't have to get very sort of moral panic about it. It is just the fact that we have invested a lot of money quite quickly, and we've seen a lot of growth quite quickly, and it just takes a while for culture to catch up with it, and I think it will do. It's just an issue that we need to make sure is at the forefront.
I love what Carly said about this needs to be a safe space, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Your daughters and any girls wanting to play football need to know that they can go to play football and it's going to be safe. Maybe they want to be in an all-girls team. Maybe they're okay with mixed. But there needs to be that space for them to be able to go be themselves, feel safe, and enjoy playing football. At the same time, there's not a lot of resource to do that, is there? We can't keep building more pitches. There's not space for that. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a tension, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very much so, very much so. But I think that at that grassroots level, I think girls are seen as inferior to boys, and like I said, that's going to take time to iron out. But once that culture change happens, then I think that we will see that some of these issues getting ironed out.
God created us in his own image. That is male and female he created. So girls playing football is as important to him as boys playing football. We've all been created in his image. We've all been given gifts. And I think the Christian angle of this is that there's girls here who've been given gifts from God of being physically able to play football to a high standard. We should be doing everything we can to support that
Absolutely.
resourcefully.
And I think, like, particularly if you look at the New Testament as well, there's a fantastic verse in Galatians chapter 3 that says, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
And that speaks of just that equality that Christ was all about. And so I think that if we needed a change in mindset, I think that Scripture is a really great place to look, because it tells us that we're all created equal. We're all created in God's image. And so not just in football, but anywhere in a society where somebody is put at a disadvantage because of their gender, I think is something that we should be, we should be looking to fix.
100%. And it's a responsibility for all of us, isn't it? To stand up for that.
I think so. And I think one of the things that I'm sort of certainly looking at, challenging myself, is how can I get involved? How can I help the coaches? There's things that everybody can do, like I said, just in terms of getting involved in your own community. Yeah,
and I think we should definitely cover at some point grassroots football as a whole, both male and female, that there are issues in that as well, in, parents' involvement, in respect, that kind of thing. So, Ed, do you want to have a go answering my question?
No.
Earlier on in the podcast, I posed you the following question. Which English midfielder registered the most assists in a Champions League season, having signed for his club on a free transfer? It is quite a hard one.
It's really hard. Yeah, I'd originally thought about Jude Bellingham.
Have a think about English midfielders, successful English midfielders that signed on a free transfer.
Yeah, I do have a name. I'm not very confident, but we'll go with it.
Okay, you can go for it.
I'm going to go for James Milner. He had great spells at Liverpool, City. I wonder if he just had a particularly good year in the Champions League. James Milner.
Well, you should be confident, Ed, because it's right.
Yes!
Get
Come
in.
on, no way.
Oh, I'm delighted with that.
There's absolutely no way. You don't think of him as an assist machine, do you?
For Liverpool, in 2017 to 18, he managed 9 assists in a single Champions League campaign, which is a new record alongside Luis Figo, as previously mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was on free kicks and corners a lot that season.
Oh, goodness.
Racked them up.
It was a bit of a left field guess when I realised it wasn't going to be Jude Bellingham. So, fantastic.
You should be proud of yourself.
I'm very proud.
5-3 now.
5-3 is much more respectable.
Still got some catching up to do.
It's more of a ding dong battle now, isn't it? Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you so much for listening to The Big Man Up Top. If you want to get in touch with the show, please send us an email to podcasts@ucb.co.uk, and please follow, subscribe, give us good reviews, all that lovely stuff. This will help us to get the word out. And if you've enjoyed this, please tell your mates. A huge thank you to our producer Anthony for all his hard work. There will be a new episode next Tuesday, won't there, Joe?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, fantastic. Well, see you next week.
See you then.